Greetings, mortals, and welcome back to the Library of Gnosis. Today, I have a special interview concerning the state of the US today. I felt it apt in the lieu of recent events. I would like to present my freedom-loving brother from another mother. Welcome to the Library of Gnosis, my man, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just worked a hard day of work. Looking forward to relaxing a little bit.
Okay. The United States has a long history of militias. I mean, the nation itself was formed by a civil war, a violent uprising against the imperial powers. History does not repeat, but it does rhyme. So, tell me, what got you into the so-called Boogaloo movement to begin with? And could you also
Uh,
explain to the audience what the quote Boogaloo is?
well, how I see it, and how others that I've talked to within the movement see it, not everyone shares this ideal, obviously, but everyone has their own definition of the boogaloo.
For sure.
But for the majority of the people that I talk to, we just want to be left alone, but we want our liberties and our rights to be respected, and the rights of other people who live here.
Amen.
Everyone twists it their own way. Like, Threepers say that they want what we want, but a lot of the Threepers I've been seeing on the news have been very, very anti-police brutality protesters. They've been against the protesters protesting police brutality. Us and the Boogaloo are against police brutality. We're against the wrongful killings of George Floyd, Duncan Lemp, I want to say Breonna Taylor down south, frickin' no knock raid, getting murdered and sleeping in her own bed after working
There,
shift at a paramedic just because her boyfriend tried protecting.
there are too many to count.
Exactly. There's just no knock raids, red flag laws. All this stuff is unconstitutional. It needs to end.
In what way does this movement represent you?
I heavily value personal freedom, personal liberties, and the movement represents that. It's a lot of like-minded people. I can talk to people about these kind of things in there.
Liberty for all.
Exactly.
So, do you foresee an organized, I'll take a preface on organized, armed uprising happening within the US borders? Or will more peaceful means win over?
All we want is peace, but we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. We are no means a violent organization. Like I said, we just want to be left alone and have our own personal liberties, and everyone else have their own personal liberty. But if something does kick off, I would not be surprised. It's just a matter of who and when, and if the government tries to kick off another false flag thing.
I think they already did 5 before you took a breath.
I would not be surprised.
So, in your opinion, what's the temperature like inside the States at the present moment?
I'd say we're just simmering on low right now, just waiting for another flashpoint to cause everything to boil over.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the protests have quieted down. There's not, at least it's not being reported anymore. I'm not hearing about more rioting. It's just protests and statues being torn down. I'm not hearing about buildings being burned down, except for Madison, Wisconsin. The Capitol building, I guess, got firebombed on Wednesday.
Oh, really? So, are you a straight up abolitionist, or do you believe there's still value in maintaining the original Constitution?
I think I consider myself a constitutionalist libertarian. Like, I value both policies from the Constitution, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, thou shalt not be forced to quarter military members in your home, stuff like that. But there's stuff about the libertarian movement that I like. Like, I think that marijuana should be decriminalized. Like, I don't like it personally. I don't like it around me. But if somebody wants to spark up on a Friday night, I don't think they should get arrested for just trying to go out and buy an eighth or something.
For sure. So, what is your opinion on the biggest problem facing Americans today?
We just need to understand each other. There's just too much divide. A lot of that is created by the media, in my opinion. They're just fear-mongering at this point. Yep, there's just too much fear-mongering, and people are buying into that fear. If we could all just take a minute to sit down, talk things out, I feel like a lot of us would find that we have a lot in common.
What did that guy with a beard in the Middle East say? Love thy neighbor? Something like that.
Which guy with the beard in the Middle East? You'll have to be a little bit more specific than that.
I think his name was Jesus.
Oh. I didn't know if you were talking about, like, Jesus or Muhammad.
Oh, whichever. Love thy neighbor is a pretty general thing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But,
Go on.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, what's your, change track now. What's your opinion on, Trump?
At first I voted for him because I thought he was actually going to try to change things, but the only thing I've been seeing is him not involving the U.S. further into other conflicts besides the usual bluster that he's known for. The don't you do it or else we'll get involved attitude. He's not actually bringing us into more conflicts like the past however many presidents, however far back it goes. Like, we're not going into another country's civil war or another border conflict with another country. Like, we're not, at least right now, getting involved in the border conflict between China and India.
He is an actor, after all.
Yep, but he's not doing the stuff he said he would, besides the not getting involved more into war.
I mean,
like, for him...
What politician does?
Very few.
Ron Paul.
Absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm one for reducing the federal government and everything. It's our senators, our representatives that don't even actually represent the people that they say they are. People shouldn't be trying to, like, go after the president for their tax returns when the people in Congress, you know for a fact, would not release theirs. The ones that have been there 20 plus years getting money from lobbyists. Because a lot of politicians have made a lot of money over the years. And I don't think we should be paying them as much as we do.
I listened to, I can't remember the podcast in the moment, but the podcast was, it concerned, like, the CIA and the president. And,
sounds like a Joe Rogan podcast right there.
It's conspiracy shit here. Oh, it's actually true, though. They said that the CIA, like the Alphabet Boys, referred to the president as, like, passing or whatever. He's only there for a maximum of 8 years, while some in the CIA have been there for 50.
Yeah, it was after FDR that they made it so we could only have 2 terms as president.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know that. It's interesting.
Yep, because he was voted in for a 3rd term, and he, I don't know if you know, like, remember, since, what country did you say you were from?
Sweden.
But, FDR died in office, and that's when Harry Truman took over in 1945.
Damn.
And, shortly after, nuked Japan twice.
Yeah.
But then you have politicians in office right now actually threatening to use nuclear arms on American citizens for not wanting to turn in their guns.
Uh, I'm sure you heard about that guy who got drone bombed, like the American citizen. I think it was during Obama time. Had him drone bombed, and he was an American citizen. Can't remember.
I did not hear about that.
Oh, yeah, that happened. That's the thing. So,
Our media likes to only tell what they want us to hear.
the media would never lie. So, what are your thoughts on the QAnon movement? Is it a psyop or
The what movement?
QAnon? Oh, you never.
I know of QAnon on 4chan, right?
Yeah.
I really don't have any thoughts on that matter. I've never really delved into it, but I think how they trick news companies into pushing fake stuff that they've actually come up with is kind of funny. But I don't really put any validity into what they say because I don't really have a standpoint either way. I feel like they're just a giant meme group at this point.
It's kind of like the Boogaloo Boys. So, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? I mean, not the concept itself. I mean, the movement group.
I knew what you meant, the movement.
Yeah.
What they say they stand for is a good thing, but the way people who represent the movement behave in some situations, and the fact that they don't get condemned by the greater movement itself when they're burning down buildings, destroying private property. Like, if I understand that you're angry, but if don't take your anger out on your own community, take it out on the people causing the injustice. That's what I don't get about the riots.
You know, I'm always suspicious when the media is promoting something.
Well, they're promoting going out and protesting, but they were trying to, like, oh, you can't go to the Trump rally. That was on my news feed. People were discussing that. It was like, oh, you can't go to the. They don't want people going to the Trump rally because of fears of coronavirus, but they're encouraging people to protest in the streets. And we've heard nothing about the coronavirus cases rising from that, but other things like, oh, the bars are reopening, stuff like that's causing the cases to rise, not the people being closely packed together in the streets and then getting tear gas causing more coughing.
Oh, while we're on the topic, I mean, I didn't even write this down, but how about Corona though? Is that made in a lab?
It's possible. Like, you can't really discount it at this point, but I think it's way more overblown than it should be. And the reason why in some places it got so bad is that they were forcing coronavirus patients into nursing home full of people who are at risk.
Yeah, I actually read recently that half of the COVID-19 deaths inside of the United States were because of the nursing homes. It was actually QAnon who posted that.
In New York State, the governor actually ordered coronavirus patients into nursing homes. So, like, I think that's criminal.
You don't say.
And I guess New York City actually got caught just putting down any death where the person had coronavirus as a coronavirus death. So if somebody had a heart attack, but they also tested positive for coronavirus, they're being marked down as a coronavirus death.
I've been hearing a lot of reports about that. He died of a heart attack. It's corona. I mean, he had COVID in his system, you know.
But yeah, it's like there's a lot of people who are testing positive for COVID and being asymptomatic. With any disease, there's people like that. But they could die from an outside cause and still have it be contributed to coronavirus, which I don't get.
Unless you have an agenda.
Exactly. They want to push fear. And politicians on the left have been saying, oh, crash the economy. That's the only way that we'll get a Democrat president into office. Well, I'm hoping that with everything that's going on, it's going to give a chance for a libertarian president to get into office, break the two-party system that we've had for hundreds of years.
Yeah, I did see that
Joe
Jorgensen
Jorgensen.
was trending. Was it NBC or something like that? Who had a poll, and she was like 70%.
Yeah, it was her versus. There's one poll I saw. It was like her versus Donald Trump, and 71% of people voted in like a poll of 30,000 when I saw it.
Yeah, but yeah, but all the leftists are gonna vote against Donald Trump though. So three-way poll though, very interesting.
Unfortunately, Facebook doesn't allow that kind of thing. With the whole picture thing, like
maybe they're maybe they have an agenda as well.
well, like you can do three-way polls in groups. Like you can do like open polls, and I've seen like 30 options in a poll before, but it's you don't have a picture of the candidate.
Yeah.
Or if you do, it's a tiny thumbnail.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are your thoughts on defunding the police? I've heard that it might be an excuse to bring in the UN or the military instead. Myself,
I don't think we should.
honestly cannot see how they can be any worse than the police.
I don't think we should necessarily defund them so much as demilitarize them. Do you know what I'm saying with that?
No more tanks.
Like, yeah, they don't need APCs to serve an arrest warrant.
Did you know?
I saw this. Go ahead.
Did you know that back in the day, this is during the 1800s or something, like just when the police started, I mean during the early 1800s, there was no police in the United States. It was only like
yeah, it didn't start until like 1870s, 1880s. I want to say.
Yeah, something like that, and they
out in California actually.
Oh really? The people were against police having guns at that time. So they didn't have guns until way later. way later. This is
like I think they should have
years or something.
I think they should have guns, but they shouldn't be able to have a fully automatic rifle when I myself am not able to without a very hefty tax stamp every year.
Okay. I live in Sweden, so I'm glad a tax stamp is all you have to worry about. Getting a gun here is
to get a fully automatic, there's a lot of stuff you have to go through.
Oh, you can get a fully automatic. Yeah.
It takes a lot. But like myself, I have several firearms that I own, and I didn't have to go through anything special for them. Just the standard background check, and I got to take them home that day for all of them once the background check came back clean.
Yeah, I think you can't get a gun in. I think I read somewhere it's like 3 days or something.
Certain states here will have it so there's like a 3-day wait period for certain types of weapons.
Okay.
So like if you're buying a pistol, there's a 3-day wait period. But if you're buying, say, a hunting shotgun, you might be able to buy it that day.
Okay. It's not too bad. So, what would you like to see happen in the next 5 years?
Just more mutual respect for everyone. Like, everyone says there's no such thing as anti-white racism, which there is. I think that white people shouldn't be racist to people of other colors and vice versa. One thing I do say that differs from other people in the Boogaloo movement is I still support border control, but not in the super strict sense that a lot of people who vote Republican do. I'm for immigration, just I don't like illegal immigration. I have no problem with people coming here trying to live the American dream, they just gotta do it the right way. But the way to do it right now is extremely difficult, and I want that to be reformed so it's a little bit easier for people to come here.
If I was gonna give my perspective, I'd say that open the borders, but if you come here, work or starve, pretty much. There's no welfare or any other support system, especially if you came here illegally.
Where I'm from originally, the people who came here illegally are actually able to get welfare. They're able to get driver's license. They basically had more rights than I did in some cases because they were the judges and a lot of the courts would protect them if immigration would show up. They'd warn them beforehand, tell them that, hey, there's going to be a raid in a couple days. You need to hide. Judge down in Boston, actually, Boston, Massachusetts, recently got in trouble for that. She warned a family of illegal immigrants, or a whole neighborhood, I guess, that immigration was going to be doing a raid later in the week.
Yeah, I can I like the sentiment, like keeping it homogenous. Of course, I mean it's not racist to say that Asians get along better with Asians than. I mean, it depends on the person, but in general, but
some of my best friends are people from other cultures, so
yeah,
like the whole thing that one race is more superior is bullshit.
Of course, only rednecks think that.
You'd be surprised at how many people will think that, not just rednecks.
Do you know?
I'm not just talking about white, black, brown. Like a lot of people think that across every race I've found, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, my tribe. Did you know the one of the most racist people on Earth are actually Japanese?
Yep, they're very, very xenophobic. You figure they were isolated on an island for thousands of years, and then, besides the Dutch, early on, they didn't really have the Dutch and the Chinese. They didn't really have much experience with the outside world until the white man came in, demanding trading and everything, and forcing the culture change.
It's terrible.
I can't exactly blame them for harboring animosity.
I think a lot of it's been engineered as well.
But with Japan, they definitely have a boog boy ideal of wanting to be left the fuck alone by everyone else, though. But Japan also has one of the highest suicide rates in the world. Conveniently enough, like they're extremely intolerant of other cultures, but their own culture needs work because people will kill themselves because they can't live up to the standards that they're being put up to.
Trying to get a Japanese guy to speak English, the only time he'll do it is when he's drunk, because he's afraid of failing, making a mistake. When he's drunk, he'll ramble on for days.
Like I've tried to learn a couple different languages because it can only help me broaden my my knowledge, my worldview, being able to learn about other cultures.
For sure. I've been wanting to learn Russian. Do you know a little bit of Russian?
It's a very poetic language. It's so hard for me to read because the letters are so different. But I've been trying to learn it as well because there's a lot of old Russian authors that I'd like to try reading.
Yeah, exactly. Tolstoy and all that. That's interesting.
Like I can get translations, but I'd like to also read them in their native text at some point.
Yeah, they say it's not the same.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially when you're entering into the realm of poetry. It's very language specific. So, uh, in the Boogaloo, is it every man for himself, or is this a team effort? I've heard the media describe them as renegades, outsiders, outcasts, or
We definitely have our collection of outcasts in the group, but for the most part, we're just Joe everyday, just trying to live their life without hassle.
uh, what would you say the different spectrums within the movement? Or I mean, there's a lot of libertarians, of course, but there's a lot of anarchists, a lot of left-leaning anarchists, which I'm surprised by, but they do like their revolutions. I gotta give them that. I like their
They do.
They do.
I'd say a majority seem to be um, libertarian or more or less normalcy, like that. Not so anarchist. Like we've got our ANCAPs, our ANCOMs. We've got a few of the egotists, I want to say.
Yeah.
Like if
Luciferians.
it's your property only when you're in possession of it. If like you put down a drinking glass and you walk into another room, that person could walk in and take your glass and say it's now theirs to keep. I'd say majority is like libertarian leaning.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say anyone in the Boogaloo movement, from the most hardcore communists to the neo Nazis or libertarian in leaning, you know.
About the whole neo Nazis, like racism, prejudice towards anyone, race or religion, anything like that, is not welcome in the movement. And
Oh, really?
people like that make us.
I've
No,
heard
we
media say
don't
otherwise.
accept it. That's the media. They will tell you what they want you to hear. Or what they want. Yeah, they say what they want you to hear. They don't tell the truth.
Oh,
We'll have
they have agenda.
we'll
I
have
didn't
a
know
few
that.
bad eggs. Yep. Like you'll have the people think, oh, this sounds like something great for me. Can make this into a ethno state once the whole boogaloo is done, and like people like that get taken out of the groups pretty quickly. We don't stand for that kind of thing. Liberty for all, like you and I have both said earlier.
Yeah, and I think once everyone's got guns, I think it's pretty hard to enforce anything once you kind of get the genie out of the bottle, you know. Once you get the
Right.
police out and everybody's got guns, I think there'll be a
Like I said,
form of
I
national
don't
order.
think the police should be gone. It's just they need to not have a lot of the equipment they are now, and police brutality is a big issue right now. I've been seeing more and more videos of police just hurting and killing people for no reason. Like I've seen, like watched the videos following up. I know there's one that's been very, very well circulated across the web of the police in Arizona with the AR-15, and he's got the guy crawling on the ground towards him. The guy's crying, begging for his life, and the cop all of a sudden just unloads into him. Like that's 2015, 2016, I want to say, and that's about when I started being away from Back to Blue, because I used to be a pretty staunch Back to Blue kind of guy. Like, oh, police can't do wrong, but now that I'm seeing more stuff like that with the very fast rise of social media, video sharing, stuff like that, you actually get to see
See it
what's going on.
in real time, you know.
Like, yeah, you have shows like Live PD, and they're showing the good cops, but they're not showing the bad cops that are being really bad, where they're killing people just for looking at them the wrong way, or not doing some crazy, hard to follow instruction, especially if you're drunk or high, which some of these people in the videos are.
Yeah, for sure. I remember that that hotel hallway scene.
Yeah, it's sickening. The guy's literally crying, begging for his life, and the cop winds up shooting him anyways. And now that cop had no criminal charges pressed against him. Like the charges were pressed, but they were dropped. He was rehired by the city, and he also gets a $30,000 a year pension from mental trauma.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up, I gotta say.
Qualified immunity is another thing we need to get rid of for police.
And that's
Or just because you wear the badge, you can't do wrong. That's bad.
As part of the defund the police movement, as far as I know.
That doesn't just need to be part of the defund the police movement. That's the thing. Qualified immunity and demilitarization. That's two big things that should happen. And like a cop breaks a law and his buddies cover for him, that's being a bad cop. There's people who won't like hearing that, but like, you pulled over a drunk driver, it turns out it's one of your cop buddies, and you decide to cover for him, give him a ride home, you're being a bad cop because that's enabling him to go out and do it again. And next time he does that, it might not be you stopping him. It might be him slamming into the back of a car full of kids, families trying to go home after a night at the movies or something.
Yeah.
And he kills a kid, or he kills a parent.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. So, what can the everyday man do to help?
Read into things more. Don't just believe what you see on the news or read in the paper. Go out and do your own research. You'll be surprised at what you can find out on your own compared to what you're being spoon-fed by the big channel networks and the newspapers, because a lot of these places are actually all owned by the same people, so they're following roughly the same script.
Knowledge is power, as they say.
That is definitely a very good saying. Get your training. Like, do something to help your community out. Just try to help make the world a kinder place. Learn first aid, CPR, stuff like that, so if something happens, you can do something. Don't wait for someone else to do something. Sometimes it has to be you that does something.
Yeah, everybody's waiting around for somebody else to save them, right?
Or like something that like the Boog Boys are getting criticized for. It's like, oh, you guys aren't doing anything. Like, we are doing something. We are marching in the streets. We are with protesters. It might not be a huge mass of people, but we do that. And if all of us rise up, it's going to be for the right reason.
If you would estimate if, let's say an armed conflict did actually occur within the borders of the United States, how many people do you think would support a overthrow of the current regime?
That's honestly hard to estimate, because with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, a lot of the supporters are trust fund, get all their money from mommy and daddy type of kids, and at the first sign of real trouble, they're the first to run home and hide. But for like actual people who believe in something, I honestly couldn't say.
How many people do you think, I mean, even if civil war broke out, how many people do you think would be passive supporters? Like aid militiamen, for example. My estimate would be about 5 to 15 million Americans.
I wouldn't put that number that high, but it's honestly hard to estimate. Because with how much they're trying to villainize everyone that doesn't support their ideals, including the Boob Boys, like, It's hard to estimate because right now we're the target for them to dump on.
Yeah. How many people vote Libertarian? That poll showed 70%, but I'm guessing that's not very accurate. Let's say
That's just how many
five.
people who said they would as a between Trump and
Yeah.
Jorgensen.
How
Um,
how many libertarians would you say? 5%? 10%?
I want to say that the Libertarian candidate in 2016, I believe, had 3%, but after a certain percentage, the Libertarian candidate is automatically supposed to be included in the presidential debate, and we're at that percentage yet. But it's single digit, but it's higher in the single digits. I want to say 7%. It might be lower than that. I don't know it off the top of my head. But the
So,
problem with libertarians is people see us as a joke because you have people like Vermin Supreme, who's a nutcase from New Hampshire who wears a boot on his head, and he runs for president every single election since I think it's been like 5 or 6 elections now that I know he's ran in, including the last one.
I've actually heard a lot of people support that guy. I'm not
But like
100%
he's a
read up on
complete, he's wacky. But like people consider libertarians a joke because of candidates like him. So they don't want to do the research. They think, oh, these guys are just jokes. You figure last election, the election of 2016, around 30,000 people voted for Harambe, the gorilla that was shot earlier that year.
Jesus.
Like, you want to talk about actually throwing away votes? That right there is throwing away a vote.
Yeah. I'd say Joe Jorgensen might. I doubt she'll win. If she does, that would be. I mean, it's never been seen before in American history, so that'll be very special. I'd say the most uh, libertarian politician in modern history would be Ron Paul. I know a lot of people who have been turned onto the liberty movement because of him.
Ron Paul and Rand Paul both are definitely more libertarian. Like Rand is more right-leaning than libertarian, but he still has quite a few libertarian beliefs. And then Ted Cruz has actually been more libertarian-leaning as of late. He's been going against the party line, so to speak, with the Republican Party.
Did not know that. That's very interesting.
Like he's trying to shake up Congress right now. He's pushing to enact term limits. Um, he's not trying to increase military spending like a lot of other Republicans want to do. Not voting for another war like other politicians in general do. He just wants America first, it seems, and I respect that.
Yeah, isn't that the Trump movement as well? America first.
He says it is, but with how he does things, it doesn't always seem that way.
I think there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes.
There definitely is. That's just how politics are, unfortunately, and it needs to change.
Yeah. So you do believe in voting as a means
Yes.
for change? Yeah.
Yes, I still have hope in the system, even if it is a fleeting hope. I still think that we can use the system to get back some of what we've lost.
I agree. I think it's a lot harder to start from nowhere than to rebuild something.
Exactly.
So,
Like you have the whole Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone or District or whatever they're going by this week, and a lot of people are like saying, "Oh, they want to be their own independent place. We need to go to war against them for occupying U.S. soil and stuff." It's like They're a bunch of hippies with guns. Did Waco teach us nothing about that? You're gonna kill a bunch of people for actually doing something? Like, I think that the whole place is a big old dumpster fire from all the pictures and news I've been hearing coming out of that place. But I can respect them for at least making the effort and trying to do something.
Yeah, there are a lot of keyboard warriors out there.
Like, I used to be a keyboard warrior, but I just like to start arguments and stuff, so more of a troll than a keyboard warrior, I guess.
Every libertarian is a troll at heart. Have you been to a protest?
I have not, because I've always working when the protests are going on. I try to keep myself busy to keep myself out of trouble.
This sounds like a bad idea. So,
Also, I like having the money to support my lifestyle.
gotta start selling drugs, man. Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, screw that. I think heroin dealers should be killed or sent over to another country.
Yeah, for sure. If you could, we're closing in on 50 minutes. If you could leave the listeners with any wisdom you've learned in your travels, what would it be?
Don't take everything you see at face value. Read into things, and not just what you hear. Like, people that you meet, don't always make assumptions off of them. Just because they've got a whole bunch of tattoos, they're a big scary dude, that they're automatically there looking for a fight or anything. They could be the nicest guy in the world. Just, they like tattoos, and they're a bigger guy.
Agreed.
Or...
Don't judge a book by its cover, as they say.
Exactly. I forgot all about that idiom. It's been a long day.
Of course, I understand. So, we're wrapping this up now. Thank you for joining me. It's been a very interesting conversation.
Not a problem. I hope people can maybe take something from this and do something with it, or just keep that in the back of their mind next time they read something on the internet saying that Boog Boys are all violent racist extremists.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they could take something away from that. Maybe like, oh, there's an inside look. They're not all that way. Because every group's going to have its bad apples. Just we're a little bit fat. We try to weed ours out a little quicker.
Yeah, libertarians are like cats, they say. So, like I said, thank you for being on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe someday I'll have you on. Maybe when the Civil War kicks in.
Let's see if cell service is still going on by then.
Yeah, we'll do it by AM radio. It's no problem.
Yeah, everyone's going to be burning down the cell phone towers that caused the coronavirus.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And
thank you. It was a pleasure.
And thank you, listener, for consuming this. The future is ours. You can only be bound by the chains you refuse to see.
Thank you for listening. See you next time, mortal. Subscribe for more. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. And feel free to share it. If you want to support my work, you can find me on Patreon at Library of Gnosis. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Bitchute at Library of Gnosis. The audio versions of my broadcasts are available on Spotify as a podcast at Library of Gnosis. Music is produced by Coda from Coded.music.